In today's SUV crazy society, the Subaru Outback was proof that Americans would buy a station wagon as a family car just as long as it was masquerading around as an SUV. The company figured that out nearly 30 years ago when they introduced the original Outback nameplate to the States back in 1994, and it essentially saved Subaru as a brand because the company claims they sold over 3 million units globally in the 31 years that it's been around. Well, for 2026, we're seeing an all-new 7th generation. As you can see by the design, Subaru has gone a completely different direction with a more SUV boxy proportion. The platform has basically been updated. It's their Subaru global product architecture, and underneath the hood, we have a choice of 2 boxer flat 4-cylinder engines, along with an interior that has a brand new infotainment software system. So today we're actually out here in Sedona, Arizona, because we're finally able to drive the all-new 2026 Outback, and the big question I answered, has Subaru managed to preserve that wagon quirkiness within this new SUV-like body? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior design language for this all-new 7th generation Outback, I thought I'd start first by talking about what's going on underneath the hood, because this is where Subaru actually kept things mostly carryover, although they have redesigned the internals a little bit to give us better fuel efficiency and a smoother operation. But what you're going to find here is essentially 2 powertrain options at launch. The base engine remains the 2.5-liter Boxer flat 4, making 180 horsepower, 178 foot-pounds of torque. That's technically 2 less horsepower versus the previous generation. However, the XT model that I'm showing you here, which you can get on the Limited, the Wilderness, and this touring version, comes with the company's 2.4-liter turbocharged Boxer flat 4. Both of them have gasoline direct injection. There is no electrification here, so this is not a mild hybrid. And Subaru has a brand new hybrid powertrain in the Forester and Crosstrek, but for some reason, they are not launching the Outback with that hybrid powertrain, at least for now, although I wouldn't be surprised to see them eventually offer a hybrid at a later date. The horsepower figures for this model are completely unchanged. You still have 260 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of torque. The max boost pressure should be around 14.5 psi, and it's all hooked up, of course, to a Lineartronic CVT, which Subaru says it's their latest version, with, of course, the company's symmetrical all-wheel drive system is standard with their latest X-Mode software, which allows you to take this vehicle a little further off the beaten path, of course. Fuel economy, Subaru, at least the paperwork says this is rated at 24.29. I actually think it's probably a typo. I think it's really 22, 29, around 24 combined. That's about the same MPG as last year's model. That's, of course, on regular grade gas. The fuel tank capacity is 18 gallons. It shrank about a half gallon compared to the previous model. You should be able to do around 430-ish miles of range on a full tank. Now, the Outback with the turbo has always been a quick vehicle. The last one that we tested for the prior generation took just under 6 seconds. However, today we are driving the car at elevation. It's almost 5,000 feet above sea level, so we're not going to get anywhere close to that 0 to 60 time. Top speed should be just under 130 miles an hour. This is an Outback, so it can actually tow. Subaru claims a lot of owners actually tow this vehicle between 2,700 up to 3,500 with this turbocharged engine, of course. And the curb weight, Subaru's actually kept that in check. This model, as it sits, weighs in at just under 4,000 pounds. It weighs about the same as the prior generation. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here so we can talk about the styling. As you can see, the hood is held up by a prop rod. There is no hood scoop, but you can see there's a lot of scoops here. It's got a pretty sizable air intake, and of course the intercooler is top mounted. As I close the hood here, let's go ahead and talk about the styling, because when this car was first revealed earlier this year, I know a lot of Outback faithfulists or loyalists were not happy with the fact that Subaru made this car a lot more upright and a lot more boxy to give it a more modern look. There's actually a lot of new styling details here that the Outback has never really had. First of all, the Subaru hexagonal grille is kind of more of a rectangle now. It has functional air intake openings. It's got this black bar that goes across with the Subaru logo that sits front and center, of course. There's also kind of this like shark skin texture to the plastic cladding here in the actual grille and the lower cladding. If you can believe it, Subaru actually removed a lot of the extra cladding from the previous generation, which was kind of a problem. That model I never really thought was a pretty looking vehicle. It was kind of modeled after to look like a hiking shoe. This, to me, definitely looks a little bit like Ascent meets Forester in its design. It's very boxy, it's very upright, but I appreciate the body color element here in the grille, the larger grille, of course. The headlights, as you can see, have that trendy look where they are divorced from the actual turn signal and daytime running light, but you can see you now have an LED turn signal, LED daytime running light, and your LED projector low and high beams are here. You still have LED fog lights, but Subaru has made them a little bit more modern and a little bit more streamlined as opposed to the big circles that you find on the previous generation. You can get that, of course, on the new Wilderness model, which we'll have to save for a different review. I love how the cladding here, as you can see, is not as overdone as the previous generation, and this model actually preserves the same 8.7 inches of ground clearance. No skid plates on this model here. You'll have to buy the wilderness trim to get that, of course, but overall, let me know what you guys think of the design. I actually think that in this crystal white exterior color, it looks good along with the black and the gray accents. I think this is a design that's going to age probably pretty well. Now, as you move around the side profile of the vehicle, you can see this model definitely still has that wagon profile, even though, again, Subaru made it significantly taller. In fact, it's around 1.5 inches taller in the height at 67.5. Its dimensions are unchanged. So again, the styling is kind of playing a trick with your eye because you have the same 108.1 inch wheelbase with an overall length of 191.7. So it's actually around the same length as the previous generation. Width remains the same at 74. It just has that taller roofline to give you more interior space, which we'll talk about in just a moment. You can see the wheels. The XT models will come with the first ever 19-inch wheel on the Outback. So you can see this is the Touring XT that we're showing you with the 19-inch wheel. It's riding on a 225 by 55 R19. I actually really like the design of the wheels with the kind of two-tone look where you have the machine and the glossy black inner spokes. All disc brakes, of course, and the rotors in the front are 12.5 inches, 11.8 at the back. The suspension has been redone, although if you want the adaptive suspension, you have to go for the wilderness trim. This does not have that. You can see the cladding also is pretty tasteful, and there's also like this little extra piece here, which is apparently ionized copper on the wilderness, but overall with the crystal white, it certainly looks good. It's a lot more sophisticated. It doesn't have that overdone cladding like you found on the previous generation. Now, in terms of the mirrors, you can see the Tourings used to come with a satin silver mirror. Subaru has now replaced that with just a gloss black. These are power folding with 360 camera. If you want the 360 camera, it's on the wilderness, it's on the Touring trim, and it's on the XT Limited trim. It looks good, of course, with some of the darker accents here. You have their new ladder type roof rails, which used to be exclusive to the wilderness trim. This actually will carry up to 800 pounds now of static, or a static load, 220 dynamic, and you can also carry up to 220 laterally for like if you want to attach a hammock to the actual roof rail. The sunroof, as you can see, is included on this trim. It opens up in the normal way, but there's still no availability of a pano sunroof, which I find to be a little infuriating. I was hoping Subaru would offer that. But as you can see, the design, there's an interesting profile here, this little piece which kind of breaks up the rear window from the actual cargo window area. It definitely gives it that more boxy profile, but they've been able to increase the rear seat headroom significantly, which is a complaint that Subaru got from owners of the previous generation, especially if you were a little bit taller. Now, coming over to the rear of the vehicle, the design certainly looks a lot more like a Forester to me. In fact, it's a lot more boxy and upright, but at the same time, I think it's pretty handsome and modern. I really like how they have this kind of unpainted area here for the integrated spoiler with the third brake light. This is great if you want to kind of lean something against here, like a tall fishing rod or skis. It'll prevent you from scratching the area. You have a digital camera style rearview mirror that's on this trim here, and you have the rear wiper that kind of sits right here at the bottom of the glass. It would have been nicer if they tucked this underneath here. You can see they've also cleaned up the badging back here and introduced some new lighting features. So you can see the signature lighting on this trim has that very trendy full LED light bar, although it kind of breaks up at the actual Subaru logo, but it almost has like a three-dimensional texture to it. I really like the way that looks. You have incandescence, unfortunately, for the turn signal. The reverse light is a full LED, which is at least nice. You have Outback spelled out the back, along with just a very simple symmetrical all-wheel drive badge there. In the past, Subaru had so much badging back here, so it's nice to see them kind of clean that up. And then in terms of the rear bumper, you can see it's completely unpainted, but at the same time, the cladding here with that shark skin texture looks nice with the big Subaru spelled out in the actual bumper. You have integrated parking sensors front and rear. And then underneath here, you can see the XT models will have a dual exhaust system. Now the mufflers are kind of tucked underneath, but that's how you know this is the XT because there's no XT badging here. The turbo models are the only ones that give you the dual exhaust as opposed to the single exhaust. I would have liked to see an actual chrome tip sticking out of the back with two of them. That would have given it a sportier look. But overall, I'm really liking the way the new Outback looks from the rear, especially more so versus the front. Now, in terms of the cargo capacity, as you can see, a power liftgate is actually standard equipment across all trims. Subaru is going to offer it in 6 different trims. The base is now the premium. And in terms of the cargo flexibility, this is where Subaru gave customers more space on the inside without actually increasing the dimensions. So as you can see, with these, with the seats up in the back, you get up to 34.6 cubic feet of storage space, which is an increase of 2 cubic feet. You can see my Tesla has the accessory cargo cover back here. And then if you want to look underneath here, you can see here there is a little bit of an underfloor storage area along with a temporary spare that kind of hides underneath here. So no full-size spare, but I imagine that might be something the Wilderness could offer. There's actually pretty good storage underneath here, which is a nice touch. If you want to fold down the seats, you can see, pull that lever back here, it actually folds the seats down, giving you a almost completely flat low floor. And Subaru says the maximum cargo capacity is now 80 cubic feet. So that's an increase of around 5 cubic feet versus the previous generation. That gives the Outback near top of the class cargo capacity. And it's also going to have roughly 10 to 15 more cargo cubic feet of space versus a lot of the compact SUVs you might be comparing it to. I also want you to notice one more other thing. This is a new feature that I think owners are going to appreciate. It's their newest cargo cover. And as you can see, it's actually a magnet here that kind of, I guess, sticks into that little hole right there. And there's also the same one over here. This essentially functions like a hammock. So for example, I can take my heavy backpack and I can put it right on top there. And you can also essentially fold this up to kind of carry some items in here. Subaru says a lot of these hooks that you're seeing can support between 6 to 44 pounds. So this is a really cool feature. If you want to put something wet in here that you don't want to get dirty off the floor, you can do so. If you want to put sensitive items like chips or eggs, for example, you can put that here with your heavy groceries down here. This is a great feature that I think Subaru owners are really going to appreciate. But overall, cargo capacity is very impressive, especially the fact that Subaru kept the size the same while giving you more interior space. So the exterior of the all-new Outback is radically different versus the previous generation, but what about the interior? This is where Subaru also made some pretty big upgrades here to address a lot of complaints with the previous generation, more specifically around the infotainment system, which we'll get to in just a moment. As you can see, this Touring XT trim that we're showing you has a unique interior color option. This is, again, the premium Napa leather that you get with this trim. This is the only trim to get the Napa leather in this beautiful Java brown color. It certainly looks good with the crystal white exterior. These seats are also heated and ventilated. This is the only trim that'll give you the ventilated seats. The other trims do offer the heat functionality. And there's also some nice little touches here like the contrast stitching and piping, this really interesting texture that's on the headrest that kind of goes into the side bolsters. You also have this adjustable thigh extender, which is great for making this seat even more comfortable on those longer trips. And this trim also gives you 2-person memory, although I think the limited trim also gives you the memory function. Now, in terms of the door panels, as you can see, they actually have some pretty nice materials as well. That beautiful Java brown leather carries over to this part of the door panel. This is a soft touch injection molded plastic. You have some chrome accents for the door handles, your 2-person memory function here, and then you can see the window controls. They're chrome accented and they're 1 touch up down for all 4. Really nice upscale touch. I also appreciate this kind of metallic look trim here, which almost looks like a black aluminum trim, but it's actually just a fake plastic. You can see nice padded armrest here where you rest your elbows, and then this lower portion, it is hard touch plastic, but Subaru has redesigned the door pocket storage, which, as you can see, they've actually lined it with some carpet material, and it's large enough to where you can literally fit a 32-ounce jug here, which is great. Actually, there's still plenty of room in here for more storage. You have a premium Harman Kardon stereo, which is standard on this trim for you audiophiles out there. But overall, it certainly makes a great first impression. Now, as I get inside this car, you can see it is a wagon that's lifted with 8.7 inches of ground clearance. It has an easy step-in height, but it also feels not quite as high as some SUVs. So kind of keep that in mind as I get in and shut the door. The door has a pretty solid sounding thunk. That rattle you heard is actually just the water ball that's in there. But as you can see, the key fob hasn't really changed. All Outbacks this year come standard with their intelligent access key. You can see Subaru's key is a nice design with your typical buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, and their panic function. And in general, it's just, hasn't really changed, but it's a nice size feeling key. As you get in, the start stop button is right here behind the steering wheel. And because this is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid, it has a very traditional starter noise with the typical Subaru chime. I have to say that chime can get really irritating, especially if you forget to put your seatbelt on. If you're just trying to move the vehicle around, it will beep bloody murder at you. But the big story, of course, with this new Outback is the completely redesigned interior. Subaru has a brand new interface in this car, and the previous generation Outback was the first one to introduce their Starlink 11.6-inch display. So this is now introducing a 12.1-inch display, and it also, for the first time, is introducing a fully digital instrument cluster, 12.3 inches on every trim of the Outback. It certainly has much more modern graphics. It looks a little different versus the other Subaru models that I've shown you guys before. And in general, as you can see, it makes a great first impression. The steering wheel, as you can see, is technically the same steering wheel from the previous generation, but Subaru has replaced the buttons here, but the design is pretty much the same. You have a heated steering wheel on this trim as well, along with updated buttons. As you can see, your X mode button has been moved to this actual steering wheel as opposed to being in the screen itself, so I really appreciate that. You have paddles here to control the CVT, which offers 8 virtual ratios, and in general, the buttons are well labeled. They have a high quality feel. The steering wheel itself offers a manual tilt telescoping arrangement, so you can kind of get comfortable and get a good driving position. The horn, It sounds a little puny if I'm being honest, but that's something maybe you could change out in the aftermarket. As you can see in terms of the dashboard materials, this upper portion here is slightly padded. It has a rubberized texture. I also like how the brown's kind of carried over down here. And then this is the same leather that's on the door panel that's also got some stitching. This little plastic piece here is the same kind of metallic look trim that's on the door panels as well. I don't love how this area is kind of shiny black plastic, but I have to say, the screen in general has far less glare. This right here, this little extra piece is for your driver focus. So that has a camera that watches you, that makes sure you're paying attention. That's part of the Subaru EyeSight technology as well. And then with this infotainment system, as you can see, I've got my phone connected via the wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. You can also, it looks like, wow, expanded. So you can actually do a full screen expansion, which takes up the entire display, which looks fantastic. That gets rid of the native functionality, but if you want, you can bring that back to this little bar. Subaru says this is a brand new in-house developed software. So there's now, as you can see, a dedicated home button, which you can also kind of customize. You can go into your widgets over here. And everything about it is just so much quicker and snappier. The graphics look better. This is so much more modern than before. You can see there's your driver profile where you can actually, input that in, which is what part of the driver focus feature. There's the embedded GPS, which is still TomTom. I'm surprised Subaru hasn't gone away from this and gone to Google Maps. That's something that a lot of the competitors do. But at the same time, you can just see how much faster and snappier this is. This is a huge upgrade versus the previous generation, which remember had that 11.6-inch display that was kind of a portrait style. This is now a landscape style, and I think it's a lot easier to use. It's within easy reach as well. You can see there's your audio sources right there, and everything about it. It's just so much faster. It's so much easier to use. And when I touch a certain portion, it just responds immediately. You can adjust your eyesight there. And I think this is definitely going to surprise a lot of people. It shows that Subaru was really listening to complaints. And this, again, when you go to the full screen CarPlay, it just looks a million times better. And the fact that they did this on their own without kind of borrowing Toyota software, I think is a great feature. The other thing that Subaru upgraded this year is not just the screens, but as you can see, they've returned back to buttons. So you have dual zone automatic climate control as standard. You can see you have two knobs for the driver and the passenger temp. You also have buttons now for the heated and cooled seats. Previously, Subaru put those in the screen for the climate functionality. So this is definitely better. Buttons are well labeled. They're logically placed, they're easy to use. As you can see, the center console area has been fully redesigned where you have a much larger wireless phone charging pad, as you can see, and it's a much better position. My iPhone 16 Pro Max fits perfectly. You have two USB charging ports, an A and a C. And as you can see, that right there is actually like a little cord holder right there. So that's great for organizing all those cluttered cords that a lot of you may have. Subaru, again, was listening to what a lot of owners had to say. Down here, as you can see, more of that metallic look trim carries over. Where the center console has been redesigned, as you can see, the cup holders are much larger. And I also love the fact that the cup holders have these little grips in there where you can easily put a small drink like there and it doesn't wiggle around. So that's a great feature. The shifter, as you can see, has stayed put. And that's because Subaru asked owners if they wanted the shifter here, because they wanted to go to an electronic shifter. Owners said, no, don't do that. I like to put things on the shifter here like hair ties, like dog leashes. So they kept the shifter intact. That's a great, utilitarian feature as well. If you look over here, you can see there's a nice bank of buttons for your auto start, stop, defeat, auto brake hold, stability control, and then push that. As you can see, this trim and the Touring and the XT Limited has a full 360 camera. So you can do curb view. You can almost do like a perimeter scan around the vehicle as well. And you can also go to several different views there. The quality and resolution is just so much better. And this, again, all versions are going to have a backup camera and a front 180-degree camera, but you have to go for the higher trims to get the full 360 camera, which when you put the vehicle in reverse, you can see there's your backup camera. It has trajectory, it has distance markers. The quality and the resolution also is just so much improved. This is a piece of technology that Subaru was lagging behind in terms of its competitors, so it's great to see the company finally, make that adjustment there. You have an electronic parking brake, of course, additional storage over here, which is a great place to put your keys or your loose change. You have a 12-volt power outlet over here. You can see the center console is nice and padded. If you open that up, you can see it's a pretty deep size. You can fit a couple of items in there. No power outlets in here. They're all located on the outside, of course. Above me, you can see here just a standard sunroof. I would love to see Subaru give us an actual panel roof, but you can tilt it open. You can also slide it open completely. It has a built-in wind deflector, but I'm hoping one day Subaru maybe may add like a larger sunroof in this vehicle. You have ambient LED lighting as well for the map lighting, although there's not really much in terms of ambient lighting that's interchangeable. That's something Subaru hasn't worked on. There also isn't a head-up display. So if you're looking for that feature, you're gonna have to check out some of its competition. In terms of the glove compartment, you can see there's a nice little storage shelf here. If you open this up, you can see it's relatively big. It's a bin style. It's damped but not lined with felt. So overall, in terms of storage, in terms of technology, in terms of premium materials and really supportive seats, I think a lot of people are going to love what the new Outback has to offer. At the same time, they've also preserved this really great visibility with the low hood, of course, the thin A-pillars. I think most customers are going to kind of get into this car, especially if you're coming from the old one, and find a lot to like, especially when it comes to the technology and the interior storage. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area. I can show you guys what that space is like. Now, as you can see, because the wheelbase has remained the same, the legroom back here is actually the same as well. 39.5 inches of legroom space is pretty much near the top of the class. You can see the floor is not completely flat, obviously, so you're gonna have to deal with that hump if you're the center passenger. You have 2 storage pockets here, and in terms of the door panel materials, the soft touch actually carries over back here. Same thing with the leather, same thing nice and padded over here, along with the chrome door handle. You can see big bottle storage area as well. It's also lined in carpet. That's gonna help to keep things from rattling around when you have stuff stored in there. And then you can see the seats. You can fold them down by just essentially pulling on this like strap here, which, as you can see, creates almost a completely flat floor. So this is great if you guys want to put like a bed in here, if you guys plan to go camping or whatnot. The seats themselves, sadly, they do not actually offer a recline. That's a feature that I would have liked to see them add, but getting back here, as you can see, space for somebody my height at 5'7". I have plenty of room to kind of stretch out. So this is basically my driving position here. Plenty of leg room space, plenty of foot space. I can easily sit back here, cross my legs, get comfortable, which is a nice touch. The armrest, as you can see, folds down, gives you 2 cup holders. And then in terms of the headroom space, because this car is 1.5 inches taller, Subaru also basically gave us an extra 1.5 inches of headroom. So at 5'7", I have like a solid like 5 inches of additional clearance. That's impressive. So if you've got friends that are 6 feet tall, you can finally put them in the back seat. The front seat has an additional 1 inch of headroom versus 1.5 back here because of that carve out. But again, you have features like rear seat air vents, 2-level heated seats, USB-C charging ports. This is the only trim, however, I believe, to get the heated seats, although the XT Limited may have it as well. The only thing I wish it had is retractable sunshades. That's something that families really like to have. But overall, if you plan to use this as a family vehicle or you're trading in your old Outback, you're really going to notice the significant improvement in the headroom space. So the day has come. We are finally behind the wheel of the all-new 7th generation Outback. This is the Touring XT with the turbocharged 260 horsepower, 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine. This is actually the powertrain that I've always preferred in the Outback family, and there are basically no changes here aside from some updated internals. We have a CVT, of course, symmetrical all-wheel drive. We are, of course, at elevation, just over 4,000 feet above sea level, which is going to affect the 0 to 60 time. So let's go ahead and see what we can get. There are no drive modes, however, in this new version, which is kind of interesting how there's not. So I'm just going to basically put it in drive. We're going to brake torque it. And of course, it is a turbocharged engine that has a little bit of lag, but surprisingly, we actually just did a 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds, actually. I'm surprised. I'm actually really surprised that it was that fast, because I was expecting this car to be around like a second slower, which is kind of shocking to me because we did a 0 to 60 earlier and it did 8.5 seconds. That was off camera, but I didn't brake torque it earlier. This time we did. But still, the Outback with its turbocharged engine has always had plenty of power. It's one of the quickest accelerating vehicles in the segment, even though it's not the most like joyful in terms of the noises that it'll make. Remember, this is still a CVT. It doesn't have any actual physical gears. And instead, when you put your foot down, you just kind of hear the engine revs basically come up. And what's really nice about this new powertrain, however, is the fact that Subaru has made this car more refined. They've added more sound deadening materials. They've redone the internals for this car so that it has basically less friction, resulting in less vibration, which is nice. They've redesigned the engine mounts as well. So this is definitely a big improvement. This car feels a little bit more upscale nowadays, or for this new generation, and I think a lot of people are going to be quite happy with the overall package that this is going to deliver. Now, I want to actually pull off to the side here. We'll let some of these cars go by because I want to try another 0 to 60 on this somewhat flat road. All right, second 0 to 60 run. We're going to brake torque it again. Remember, there's no drive modes here. We're just going to let the revs build up. All right, we got 0 to 60 in 6.78 seconds there. That's with it more on level ground versus earlier. That's actually a pretty decent time considering the fact that we're at 4,000 feet above sea level. So I wouldn't be surprised if this car could break into the 5-second range, like 5.9 seconds, which is what we got in a 2024 Outback that I tested back home about a year and a half ago. Remember, the Touring XT or the XT models are quick, especially when you guys are coming from just the base 2.5 liter engine. This is probably shaving around 2.5 seconds off the 0 to 60 time. So in that regard, I think the turbo model is definitely still the one to get, although remember, most people are probably going to choose the base engine. Subaru did not even want to talk about the possibility of a hybrid at this drive event. I tried to ask, especially when I found the product planner by herself, and I was just like, so what's the deal with the hybrid? And she's just like, I can't talk about it. So I'm going to assume that either Subaru will put the hybrid powertrain from the Crosstrek and Forester in this car, or they might develop a new 2.4 turbo with their hybrid powertrain, which is borrowed, of course, from Toyota. I think that would probably be the more logical route to go, considering the positioning of the Outback. But in general, most people are going to find the acceleration to be pretty impressive, even though we are sitting here above sea level. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the handling and the ride comfort of this car, because we have a new dual-axis electric power steering system, which has kind of been adopted from the Crosstrek, from the Impreza, or from the WRX, from the Forester, which Subaru says has greatly sharpened the steering response and the feel. And I have to say, the Outback has always had that car-like driving feel and ride comfort as well, and that's preserved here with this new version. Even though we have a little bit taller height, the platform is essentially the same. Visibility out of this car is also still good. I can see out of the front and the side nicely. These A-pillars are still pretty thin. I love the digital camera review mirror, which gives you a full view out of the back. If you don't want to use that, you can still see very nicely out of the back because you've got these really big upright windows. That's always been a trademark Subaru thing, and they've basically preserved that here with this new generation, which is nice. We're also driving on a car with 19-inch wheels, which 19s typically will degrade the ride quality, but they're honestly not that much bigger. They're on a 55 series tire, and I find the ride quality to be very comfortable. The Outback has always been comfortable. It's always been a smooth, easy to drive vehicle, and that hasn't changed even with this new generation. So I think a lot of loyalists are going to be quite happy about that. What has changed, however, is the refinement. Now, we are on a pretty crappy road out here in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Sedona, Arizona, and I am hearing some road and wind noise coming through, but we also are driving 75 miles an hour. But I'm surprised that this is a pretty early pre-production model, and there's no squeaks and rattles. The seats are also comfortable, supportive. This is the only trim to give you the full Napa leather, which is really nice. I also love the ventilated seats. They work really great in just keeping you cool. This is the only trim to get the ventilated seats, so you have to go for this trim to kind of get that. And then in terms of the infotainment system, you can see finally the Outback has an all-digital display, which looks nice. I can even push this button here and I can change the way that looks. I can even put CarPlay or the Apple Maps in the actual display there to kind of go to a driver assistance view, a minimalistic view, of course, or the traditional 2 dials. This right here is their new software, of course, which, as you can see, doesn't have as much annoying glare as the previous generation. It's also much quicker, snappier, easier to respond. And this is a Subaru designed software. This is not a reskinned Toyota system, which is nice. The only thing that's interesting is this kind of extra piece here. That's for the driver focus that essentially watches your face. This car also has their upgraded ADAS system, so their driver assistance tech with the Subaru EyeSight. This car has the ability to now do active lane change assist for you. So if you turn the system on, for example, I'll set the cruise control here. It actually will give you some hands-off ability nowadays. Now, the one that I'm driving is a very early pre-production model, and it's flashing inactive right there in the instrument panel, but now it's showing hands-on. But if I signal right or left, it should automatically change lanes, but right now it's actually not functioning. So Subaru says that the early models may not have that feature active, but later, if you guys are going for the top trims, via a software update, they'll be able to add that in basically once the software becomes available. But it's nice how Subaru has greatly improved their driver assistance tech, their technology, the refinement. This car feels a lot more smooth and a lot more premium than the previous generation, especially on the top trims, while at the same time it's preserved the car-like driving dynamics, the great visibility, this massive improvement in technology, and of course it's an Outback, so Subaru doesn't want you to forget about off-road capability. And while we're not going to be driving the wilderness today, we'll save that for a separate review sometime early next year. Subaru has prepared some off-road trails that we're going to go down, and it'll be interesting to see how this touring trim on the 19-inch wheels does when the pavement ends. So an all-new version of the Subaru Outback definitely doesn't come around very often. This vehicle will always have a special place in my heart because I actually bought a 6th generation back in 2020 and I owned that vehicle for a year. I really didn't think that I would really like the car at the time, but after spending some time with it, I fell in love with it, but it had a lot of issues, especially around the infotainment system. So after spending the full day here driving the all-new 7th generation, I'm happy to report that Subaru's big upgrade this year isn't just, the refinement or the increase in interior space. It's the software behind the infotainment system, because that brand new 12.1-inch display with their latest software feels pretty much as well done as a lot of other competitors that you might test out from Hyundai, for example, from Kia, from Toyota. It just has so much more features to it. It has the wireless CarPlay functionality, and it also works every single time. It's super fast and easy to use. The rest of the driving dynamics of this car also will be pretty much what you expect. It's very comfortable, it's very refined. The Outback's not necessarily the sportiest driving vehicle, but I have to say the upgrades they made to the steering system in this vehicle have definitely improved the handling dynamics on those twisty or curvier roads. We also did manage to drive this vehicle in a couple of gravel road off-road situations. Nothing too crazy, because as you can see, the car's dirty. Subaru actually says we're gonna come back and drive or not come back here, but we're gonna drive the Wilderness model sometime early next year. So we'll talk about more extensive off-road driving in that specific video for the Wilderness. This model, as you can see, you can take it off-road, but most people are probably gonna keep it on the road, which, by the way, as you guys saw, the turbocharged engine certainly delivers the performance. Right now, we're at around 7,900 feet above sea level. Earlier when we tested it, we were at 4,000 feet, 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds, 6.7 seconds. It's pretty fast considering the fact that most vehicles in this segment are in the mid 7-second range with their naturally aspirated V6s. This car should be able to smoke something like an automatic WRX, which the Outback has already been able to do. It doesn't surprise me this is just as fast, because it basically has the same power and the same weight as the older model. The backseat and cargo area is also extremely usable, and in terms of the sales numbers, the Outback has always been Subaru's 3rd best-selling model. The company did around 170,000 units last year, just under that, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them crest the 200,000 unit mark, because there's a lot to like here with this new version. Speaking of which, if you're looking to get your hands on the all-new Outback, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more money as expected, but they are basically heading to Subaru dealers right now as we speak. And the base price for the premium trim, which is now the base model, starts at $34,995. That does look like a whopping $5,000 increase in the price versus the previous model, but remember, the base trim is now gone. Instead, the premium is now the base trim. Subaru will sell you an option package that will roll in some upgraded features, like a power driver seat, for example, for around $2,000. The limited trim is going to cost you another $4,000 extra. The touring trim is just under $42,000 for the base 2.5-liter engine. However, if you guys want to get the turbo engine is going to cost you at least $44,000 on the XT limited trim. The Wilderness is around $500 more than the limited, and then this touring trim all in is going to cost you just under $48,000. Now, I want to point out that that's before the $1,400 destination charge that Subaru charges. When you add that in and any paint color upcharge, this crystal white is actually a free color. This model here checks in at around $49,500. So that represents a pretty steep, on paper at least, $3,000 to $4,000 price increase over the previous generation. Although I have to say, with all the additional space, refinement, technology, Subaru has thrown in a lot here. And I think a lot of people who are looking in this space, especially if you're considering something like Subaru's own Forester or a RAV4 or CR-V, you might want to consider going up to an Outback where it offers more space, more premium features, more capability, and a car that just feels very unique. So even though this car looks a little bit less like a Wagon in the exterior styling, Subaru has preserved that Wagon quirkiness in the driving dynamics. So I think for those of you who like that, you're going to be pretty impressed with what Subaru has to offer. I just want them to give us a hybrid. Please, Subaru, give us a hybrid within a year, because a hybrid model of this vehicle would certainly kill it. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2026 Subaru Outback in the Touring XT trim. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.